G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Today we are doing our Sleeper Podcast Part 2, talking about points leagues. All these players are going way too late and you can get serious value and help you win your league. Let's go!
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to shot.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. And he's going to go.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York.
We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter or X at Ball Boys Fantasy. And like we said at the top of the show, guys, going through our Sleeper Podcast Part 2. Part 1, where we went through Category League Sleepers, is available on your podcast platform or on YouTube. So if you are keen on getting my category thoughts on Yahoo's adjusted rankings and where players are going too late, you can go and check that one out. Just a reminder, on this podcast, we're talking about sleepers / undervalued players. Now, there's some very well-known players in this list. So when I call them a sleeper, yes, it's me kind of using a bit of a buzzword, but we're really just talking about players that, according to Yahoo's rankings, which a lot of people do draft off, and it does influence ADP a lot, these players are going too late. And in particular, when it comes to points leagues, there are a lot of players that I could consider a sleeper. There are also a lot of players that I think are huge busts when it comes to Yahoo's rankings. And it has reaffirmed, I'm doing more points league stuff this season. It's reaffirmed to me that Yahoo's one size fits all rankings to try and thread the needle between category leagues and points leagues is just completely useless. There is no point having a rankings that covers both categories and points leagues. They are two totally different things. You're going to get some huge discrepancies between certain players in different formats. So if you have a league where a lot of your league mates generally even just loosely stick to those rankings on Yahoo's website there, like the pre-ranks, you will dominate your league, I think, in terms of the value that you can pick up. And a lot of these guys will be going 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 spots too late, in my opinion, because they are heavily influenced by category league rankings. So make sure that if you are in a league like that, or you yourself are not someone that does that, make sure you stick around and go through all of these sleepers together, because there's some serious value to be had if your draft goes anything like what these pre-ranks suggest. So let's get stuck into it. The first name, like I said, sleeper / undervalued, because I'm sure everyone's heard of LeBron James. He is the first sleeper on this list, but he's just being undervalued, I think, too much in not in category leagues, in points leagues, because in a category league, he comes out on a per game basis in around this sort of 25-ish kind of range, but in a points league, on a per game value, I've got him currently slated to be my number 8 ranked player on a per game value. However, obviously, he's turning 39 this season. He's old, man. He hasn't been super healthy in the last few seasons, so you always need to take that into account and draft him out of a discount. But as soon as it goes over into round number 2, I am happy to take a have a crack at LeBron James, because I think that he is going to be someone that averages close to the 48, 49 fantasy points per game. This is also assuming that we're using standard Yahoo point scoring system. So if you're not 100% sure about what that is, go and check out Yahoo's standard scoring system. It's the default. We're not counting any extra points for double-doubles or anything fancy like that. So if that is your league, do keep in mind that my projections will differ a little bit when it comes to that. But on general, Yahoo's ranking has LeBron James down at this spot because of where he lies in category leagues. Now, in a points league, he is much, much better, because you're looking for big points, rebounds, and assists. His lack of defensive stats don't worry you too much. His poor free throw percentage doesn't worry you at all. So he's someone that is better in a points league, but you still need to take into account the fact that he is older and he is struggling to get to those 65, 70 games. So I've got him number 8 in my per game projections. I wouldn't take him that high. I'm hoping to get him in the mid-teens, closer to 20. But if you can get him in round 3, then you've got someone who might even be better than your first overall selection on a per game basis. And I think that is a bit of a steal. So LeBron James is definitely undervalued when it comes to his Yahoo ranking at 27 for points leagues, in my opinion. The next guy here, another riskier player, but Zion Williamson is another guy that on a per-game basis absolutely smashes his 61 ranking over on Yahoo. I have him in the range of 35 to 45. I think on a per-game basis, he even smashes that. He can be a top 25, top 20 guy. But again, you're taking him at a discount when it comes to his availability and injury proneness. But at 61, I think you're taking that too far. You're going too far, and you're getting players who are averaging far less per game than a Zion Williamson will. And I've got call it an optimistic opinion that he is going to be someone that plays more basketball this season. I think all the off-court stuff that, it has shone a bad light on Zion, I think it's enough to wake him up and kind of get him going a bit, take his career a little bit more seriously. There's been talks about him, looking after his body from, a food and nutritional point of view. He's looking like he's in great shape. We've seen that before, but a lot of the talk as well in the past has been that whenever he was injured, he didn't take his rehab super seriously. He's kind of just been cruising, whereas I think now there's been a bit of a turning point in his approach to his career and his basketball. At least from what I can see, I'm still hesitant. I'm still taking that discount, but I have just a gut feeling that I think he's going to be more available this season than we've seen in previous years. And as a guy who can be top 20, if you can get him at 50, 60, that is a huge, huge steal, and a guy who can definitely affect your fantasy draft in a positive way. He can also affect it in a negative way, but at that point, I'm willing to take the risk. So 61, I think that's a bit of a sleeper. The next guy here, a bit of Aussie bias coming in. Josh Giddey at 62, so one rank behind Zion Williamson. If you don't want the stress of Zion's health, then I think Josh Giddey is another guy that I would be happy to draft in that range. Doesn't quite have the upside of Zion in terms of a fantasy points per game, but I think he comfortably finishes as a top 50 player. And pretty easily goes top 45, even top 40. So anywhere in that 35 to 45 range, I'm happy to take him. Again, the points, rebounds, assists are all there. The efficiency you don't care about. Lack of threes you don't care about. And I just think that he's so young. He's getting better each and every year. He looked good in the World Cup. Last year, he's improved his efficiency from 41% up to 48%. So that's a huge encouraging sign for Josh Giddey that in his second year became way more efficient. I think he can get to line a bit more this season, which generates more points. I think, the more he plays, I think the more they're going to want the ball in his hands from a playmaking point of view. I really like the combination of him and Chet. I think you're going to see some really good dump off and lob passes between those two. So I think that he's probably a much safer option than a Zion at a similar kind of a range and is ranked similarly on Yahoo. So I think that he is a pretty big steal, especially for points leagues when you don't worry about all of his deficiencies that you do have to worry about in category leagues. So I do think that Josh Giddey is a huge steal, and I feel pretty comfortable about it. Let me pull up what he averaged in a fantasy point sense last season, but my projections don't have him all too different from last year. I think I've got his scoring coming up a little bit, his rebounding coming down a little bit with Chet taking a few of his rebounds, but the rest of it all pretty similar. So even just a minor step forward has him in this range, whereas 62 Yahoo rank is a step backwards for Giddey compared to last season. And again, it's another one of those ones that is affected by the category value because he's not as good as a category league player because of the fact that he has poor percentages. He doesn't get steals and blocks to a high rate. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes. But what he does do is he does get points, rebounds, and assists, which for fantasy points is a very efficient and reliable source of fantasy points per game that I think you can expect in, day out, week in, week out for Josh Giddey. So at just 20, he's not even 21 years old yet. He's still... he's turning 21, I think, just at the start of the season. So extremely young player, still plenty of room to grow for Josh Giddey, in my opinion. Just before we go on to the next few guys, reminder that ballboysnba.com is open. My season guide is available for purchase. We've got 2 options for memberships. If you want to just grab my top 150 rankings for both category and points leagues, you can go and check out the silver membership option. But if you want the best service and the best experience from ballboysnba.com, get the platinum membership, which gives you access to those rankings, but also to my projections, so you can see explicitly what I'm projecting every player to score in terms of their fantasy points, how they're getting there in terms of their points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. You can check all that on my projections. I'm also going to be putting up some fantasy basketball articles, and my Dynasty rankings, my top 250 Dynasty rankings will be coming out sometime soon. They're not quite done yet, but I'm about 130, 140 players deep into my 250 rankings, so it shouldn't be too far away. Definitely go and check that one out, guys. And I appreciate all the kind feedback that I've been getting about that one. If you guys have any things that you want maybe to cover in some of the fantasy basketball articles, you can also hit me up on Twitter at BallBoysFantasy. Always happy to listen to what the people are looking for, what the people are keen for. And the last thing with those platinum membership that you will get access to is that every week during the season, I will be doing an exclusive Q&A podcast only for those people who are in the platinum membership, and you can run by your entire team if you want to and get my thoughts on it in a podcast form so I can go into a little bit more detail. We'll be doing that every week once the season starts properly in the NBA come October. So go over to ballboysnba.com and check that one out. All right, let's go on to the next guy here. Paolo Boncaro is another sleeper here. Again, he suffers because of the category rankings and the category value that he provides. But on Yahoo, he is ranked at 65. My range, again, similar to that Josh Giddey and Zion Williamson range. There's a lot of guys that fall into that similar kind of boat. But I think Paolo Boncaro is comfortably a top 40 player, top 45 at the bare minimum, with upside to go as high as top 25, maybe even top 20 if it all comes together. I think we're going to see a huge improvement in his field goal percentage from year 1 to year 2. Maybe get some more rebounds if he's playing some backup center. And at 65, again, that's a step back from what he did last year in his rookie season. You're getting a huge discount because he doesn't provide much value in a category league, but in a points league, he should go nowhere near that range. It is a crime if he falls outside the top 60 in a points league. He is going to be their number 1 option, if not their number 2 like he was last year. And the volume that he put up as a rookie in his first NBA season suggests to me that he is very, very comfortably a top 45, top 40 option in points leagues. And again, being a young player, you don't necessarily have to worry too much. Obviously, anyone can get injured, but he doesn't have that history of injuries or anything thus far. So very safe option in my opinion. And to me, a no-brainer inside the top 50. Pretty solid and comfortable inside the top 40 or 45 there. So at 65, massive, massive steal in points leagues. Again, I hope a lot of your leagues are not going off these rankings, but if for whatever reason they are, keep in mind the fact that you can get lots and lots of value, or you can fall into some big, big pitfalls and traps by going on these rankings because they are probably more weighted towards the category league side of things in fantasy basketball than they are the points leagues. So do keep that in mind if you are drafting on Yahoo and you are doing a points league on there as well. Next guy here, again, big discrepancy between category league and points league, and that is CJ McCollum, ranked at 85. I'm not a big fan of him in category leagues. I probably wouldn't draft him inside the top 100, but for CJ McCollum in a points league, he's going to get up his shots. He's going to get his assists. You don't care about his inefficiencies or his lack of defensive stats, but I think he's a top 70 guy comfortably. You've got Zion and Brandon Ingram, who historically haven't been very healthy. So if and when those two go out, CJ has got a scope to improve on this again and still be a more of a focal point. He might take a bit of a step back from last season, but even if he does, it's still a W when it comes to this ranking. At 85, I think you've still got at least one round of buffer room for him to fall back a touch from last season. So I think that at 70, inside the top 70, I'm happy to go for him. And at 85, you're getting at least a round of value, if not more, assuming some of those guys who have missed time continue to miss more time this season, and he takes picks up a bit of the slack when it comes to fantasy points per game across the one. This next one here, guys, if you forget every one of these players, this next guy here is the biggest steal in fantasy basketball in Yahoo points leagues because Kyle Kuzma is ranked at 88. I think he could easily put 50 spots on this value. He is, a serious points league beast. He puts up shots. There's no Beal. There's no Porzingis. He might play a bit of time at center this season, improving his rebounds. He's going to get shots up between him and Jordan Poole. They are going to be given the green light. You don't care about the fact that he's terribly inefficient. If we talked about those guys before, where we talked about Giddey, Paolo, Zion, and Kuzma, he's right in there. I think he's probably, at the moment, I've got him slightly ahead, Paolo and Giddey behind Zion. Maybe with Paolo getting a little bit more upside, but I'd probably take him ahead of Giddey, who I said was value, and he was ranked 20 spots higher, or more than 20 spots higher than Kyle Kuzma. So you don't need to go where I've got him in my range here, 35 to 45. You can get him at pick 55, 65, 75, and you're still getting enormous value, let alone he slips to his 88 rank on Yahoo. Again, in a category league, that's about right for him for category league value. But for points leagues, it's 50 spots too low because he just ticks all the right boxes: points, rebounds, assists, half a steal, half a block, whatever. That's terrible in a category league, but it's something for points leagues. He's terribly inefficient from the field and the free throw line, so that's just providing more value for you guys in a points league. And yeah, I just really don't see a world where he averages less than, let's say, 35 fantasy points. I think he's putting at least that up a game, which should be good enough for basically top 50 value. I think he's probably more likely to put up 40 fantasy points in the Yahoo system than he is less than 35, which again gets him to that top 30 kind of mark. And I just think that there's serious value for Kyle Kuzma. He doesn't rely on steals and blocks as well, so the week-to-week production is more predictable as well. There's less variance in a player like that. So I really don't see much downside in Kyle Kuzma at all. And to me, he's the biggest steal in points leagues, bar none. Okay, so I'm really a big fan of Kyle Kuzma this year for points leagues. If he is going anywhere near that drafting position and that ranking, definitely snatch him up. The next one here is not one that I would have expected, but Scoot Henderson is a sleeper for me for points leagues, and he might be a genuine sleeper because he is a rookie. He's brand new to the NBA. You might not necessarily have seen him play if you haven't been watching any of his G League or Summer League things, but he is a guy that definitely fits the bill of a points league over category leagues guy. Rookie point guards, rookie guards that come to the NBA are always inefficient. They always turn the ball over a lot, which is something we need to pay attention to. But I think regardless of Damian Lillard being there or not, he will get up points. He will put up really good assist numbers. He can rebound and get some steals as well a little bit, but it's really the scoring and assists that I think is going to get him up into the good fantasy points scoring zone. I think that in my range on the screen here, I've got him at 70 to 80. I think he can do at least that. If we see a Damian Lillard trade, he could probably push up to, top 65, top 60 range in a points league. But I think even if Lillard is there, that he has serious value with his Yahoo ranking outside the 100 at 104. That's about right for me for his category league value, but in that kind of format, you take into account his poor efficiency, the lack of threes. I don't think he's going to shoot very well from the three-point line. He's not going to get any blocks or anything like that. So you are getting a discount based on just the raw numbers that I think he can put up. If he outscored someone like a CJ McCollum, I would not be surprised because I think he's an extremely talented player. I'm a big believer in his long-term projection. I'm trying to find where I have him projected at. So I've got him projected currently at about just over between 30 and 35 fantasy points per game at about 33.5. And I've been quite conservative, I think, in terms of his projections. I think the assists are going to be really, really good, in my opinion. Should play out of the gates, whether or not Lillard is there, 30 minutes plus per game. It might be tough earlier on, so that he might be about the 104th ranked player early on, but again, you stomach that with the rookies because by the time it comes to your fantasy playoffs, he's going to be absolutely cooking and maybe even able to provide you with, top 60, top 50 value when he starts to really get it going. And there's absolutely no world where I think that Lillard is not on this. That Lillard is on the Trailblazers after the trade deadline. I think he might start the year there, but I think at some point during the season he does get traded and Scoot will be unleashed. So very happy to jump on him well before the 104 rank. But if you can get him around that spot, that's ideal because then you're picking up some serious value. And the last guy here we're going to talk about is Aaron Gordon. Again, another guy who suffers because of his poor free throw percentage, doesn't shoot a lot of threes, so in category leagues he's ranked down a little bit, but in a points league setting he just is super consistent. There's no real threat or change to his role. I pretty much expect him to do exactly what he did last season, and for me that's just easy top 90 value. When you're getting him outside the top 100, you're looking at least 20 spots. Outside the top 110, you're getting at least 20 spots of value. And in my opinion, there's no real reason to overthink an Aaron Gordon at this point. I think that you don't even have Bruce Brown there anymore, so there's a little bit more of a role and a usage and playmaking to go around on that team. Michael Porter Jr. is historically not very healthy, so if he goes down or something else happens to him, Aaron Gordon can step into an even bigger role. It's really nothing but upside from this point. So I think easy top 90 with potential to potentially do more. At no point do I really see him dipping below 110, which is where Yahoo has him ranked at 114. In a category league, for example, he's just not exciting, so people fade on him. But in a points league, he will get the job done for you, and he will put up, I think, more than 30 points a game, more than 30 fantasy points per game, which is comfortably top 100 and comfortably, in my opinion, top 90 because he did it last season. I don't think anything changes this year. I think he just goes back and does the same old thing in 31, 32 minutes a night. He's got a very solid role over there in Denver. Well, that will do it for the sleepers for points leagues. We will be going through busts in points leagues and in category leagues, and we will also be doing some late round flyers and deep league sleepers for points leagues as well. So anyone outside the top 120, I didn't include in this list. We will be talking about those guys later in a separate video. So if your guy that you think I missed is ranked outside the top 120, I will more than likely be including them in a separate video, so stay tuned for that one there, guys. Reminder, go over to ballboysnba.com and get your season guide, get access to my projections, my top 150 rankings, fantasy basketball articles, dynasty rankings, and exclusive Q&A podcasts, plus anything else that I want to throw in there as well. And make sure you subscribe, thumb up this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.